Inside the war economy, how defense spending drives global conflicts. Yo, what's up, fam? Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving deep into something that's kinda heavy, but super important, the war economy. You might be like, what the heck is that? Don't worry, we got you covered. So here's the deal. Countries drop crazy amounts of cash on their military, like a ridiculous amount. But why? How does that affect the rest of us, and what's the deal with global conflicts? Let's break it down real simple, and I promise no boring history lectures here. What is defense spending? All right, first things first. Let's talk about defense spending. This is just a fancy way of saying how much money a country spends to keep its military strong. This includes buying big ol' weapons like fighter jets and tanks, paying soldiers and their families, building military bases and fancy tech. And get this, the US spends more on defense than the next 10 countries combined. Yup, you heard that right. And we're not talking a couple bucks here. We're talking billions of dollars every year. So why does Uncle Sam spend so much? Let's get into it. Why do countries spend so much on their military? So why are they spending all this dough? It's for two big reasons: protection and power. Countries need to defend themselves, right? Makes sense. But there's also the power play. If you got a super strong military, you can basically tell other countries, hey, don't mess with us. Having a powerful army lets you flex on the world stage, making deals, keeping peace, or sometimes just showing off. But wait, there's more. This is where the military-industrial complex comes in. What is the military-industrial complex? Now, the military-industrial complex sounds fancy, huh? It's just the big companies that make all this military gear. And guess what? These companies make bank, seriously, billions, selling weapons to the government. Sometimes they even have a ton of influence over the government itself. So sometimes they convince the government to spend even more than it needs to, just to keep making money. Talk about cash flow. How does defense spending affect the economy? Okay, here's where things get a little spicy. How does all this spending affect the economy? When a country spends a lot on military stuff, it means less money for other things, like schools, healthcare, and roads. Imagine if your school didn't get enough funding for new books or cool field trips because the government spent all the cash on tanks. Kinda whack, right? That's the problem. Some countries end up with huge military budgets, but their people still don't get the resources they need. How does this lead to global conflicts? Now this is where things get real interesting. How does all this money and military power lead to conflicts? Well, if you got a giant army, you might be more likely to use it. Some countries start to get greedy and want to control other lands, oil, or resources, and they'll use their military to bully smaller countries into doing what they want. This is called imperialism, when a country tries to take over another for its own gain. The impact of war on people. And here's the kicker: war isn't just about soldiers and weapons. It's regular people who get caught in the middle. People lose their homes, their lives are destroyed, and families are forced to leave everything behind. Even when a war isn't happening, countries with huge military spending create an environment of fear. People are anxious, wondering, are we going to go to war next? And that anxiety affects everyone, not just the military. Why should we care? So why should we care? Even if we're not living in a war zone, all this military spending impacts us. We share this world, and the choices made by big countries affect us all. Whether it's money that could be used to help people, or the fear that comes from constant military tension, it matters to you and me. If we want a better future, we need to pay attention to how money is being spent and think about the kind of world we want to live in. A peaceful world, or one where military might rules everything? And that's it, folks. The war economy, defense spending, and how it all connects to power and global conflicts. It's not just about money. It's about who's in control, who gets hurt, and who benefits. If you learned something new today, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. Drop your thoughts in the comments. What do you think about all this defense spending? Does it help or hurt our world? I want to know what you think. Catch you next time, and remember, peace is where the real power's at. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more.